Fox News has interviewed some of the neighbors in that area close to where the murders took place. And they kind of describe what normally goes on in that house.
Knows that person's dangerous.
It's kind of been scary, honestly. You can wake up in that morning, on Sunday, and you just go to work, and you don't really think anything of it. I was at work, and the only thing I heard about was like the unconscious person, and then I didn't realize it had more severity to it till I got home and I could hear the clicking of the camera.
Unconscious person too.
It's a really small town feel, lots of hills, but it seems like a really close-knit community. All of my professors and stuff that are from here, seems like they've been here for a decade or longer, and they seem to know just about everybody.
So that's the kind of vibe we've been hearing about the entire time. I think it was like 25,000 people, but small community. People know, seems like almost everybody knows everybody type of thing, type of deal.
So I would say it's a fairly small community, even though there's roughly 20 to 25,000 people here. The officer that came by door to door, he asked if we had any sort of surveillance or if we knew about any other cameras or anything in the area. Sadly, this is an apartment building, and I'm assuming it's relatively old, so there was nothing. Luckily, the apartment sent out an email a couple days ago saying they're adding new lights, which there is a new light up there. They're going to work on installing cameras just so that if anything...
And you can tell this is like literally right. You see the crime scene tape right there, so like they're literally right next door to it. And yeah, they better install some cameras. Like, great that there's some lights being installed, but after all this shit and whatever I'm paying for rent or whatever, they need to install some cameras.
Something like this were to happen again, there's a better chance of getting footage of who did it.
It's just nerve-wracking mostly, and stressful because she's always home alone because I work in the evenings and stuff. And just surreal, almost like something out of a TV show. Not something that I would have expected to be experiencing so close to home.
It seems like everyone that has been here for a while is just devastated by it. The last murder here was 2015, so 7 years ago.
The last murder, 2015. Holy moly. So I guess the weirdos out there are just like skinning and filleting animals and stuff. I mean, that's kind of tongue-in-cheek from the horrible stories we covered earlier. But I guess just to give some insight how people felt so safe out there, because people were, a couple of people have told me that it's not uncommon for people to leave their doors unlocked out there.
And so it's not something that happens frequently. It's not like we're in a big city where it's an everyday occurrence. So something like this is just sort of rare, doesn't happen often, so people aren't used to it. It's really odd because, I don't know, I've never been this close to any sort of other like crime scene before, I guess, other than like a drug bust, like walking by a house and seeing cops with like a drug bust, but that's the closest I've ever been to a crime scene. So especially one of this magnitude where I could throw a baseball from my front door to the house, it's just odd.
I mean, for my sister, she lives pretty much across the way. She lives in Alpha Gamma Delta. And for me, she walks to my apartment almost every day. And so the concern for me is just her walking by herself in the dark a lot now, because in the summer it's daytime, it's not as scary, but in the dark now, for me, my concern is I just don't let her walk here by herself unless it's during the daytime, and I'll go pick her up now because I don't like her walking by herself.
No, I went to bed early that night.
Yeah.
And then I woke up to a bunch of normal, and then a couple hours later we got a message and there was a bunch of police here, and then that was the end of normalcy for the past week or so here. Though the day that the police were called here, about an hour or two after that, an officer came by and just went door to door along here just asking if anybody had seen or heard anything. That's the only contact I've had with officers so far.
And then I had left for work like around 11:45, and I never saw or heard anything.
Yeah.
The night before I was up till like 2 and never heard anything at all.
I heard nothing.
Anything out of the ordinary. Like it's just been crazy with just how quiet it's been.
Yeah.
Because we're used to having like some sort of music here.
And this is just interesting, and it goes back to things are quiet now because of this horrific situation that happened, but usually there's music, there's people gathering, and they go on to describe that like it's not always like this huge gathering, it's like a smaller group. This woman here goes on to say,
they always had little gatherings, so they always had music going. So, for us, we never assumed anything different.
Yeah.
because they're so
This
used
house
to.
did.
Yeah, they
Would you
always
say it's a party house?
not necessarily.
No.
They had like small gatherings, maybe like 10 people or so, and it never really got crazy other than like the usual college student stuff. But they were actually pretty respectful, considering.
The house, occasionally there were parties that were kind of loud. Most of the time it was pretty self-contained.
So sometimes loud, but most of the time self-contained.
But yeah, as I would take my dog in and out to go to the bathroom, I would just be walking by. I would look up and I would see people in the windows almost every night, probably 4 or 5 nights a week. So there were a lot of people that went into and out of that house pretty frequently. So yeah, it was kind of a party house. But again, this whole neighborhood is sort of like a party neighborhood because it's just off campus. So
a person could be right in the neighborhood for all we know.
you sort of don't have to follow the university rules. I hope whoever did it gets found.
And that's the thing too. A friend of mine told me about like the whole right off campus type of thing. They don't really have to abide by the university rules, so you can like do all kinds of stuff off campus.
Because 4 people is not something that you just walk away from and act all normal. And so whether or not the cops think there's a danger, I disagree. I think there is a danger because 4 people shows that that person's dangerous. So I hope he's caught, preferably before I get back from break.
One of the parts that kind of stuck out to me too was when one of the neighbors he was talking about, there were parties that were kind of loud. He said, as I would take my dog in and out to go to the bathroom, I would just be walking by. I would look up and see people in the windows almost every night, which, by the way, we were talking about the vantage. I mean, you could really see from all around that house, but specifically to what we were talking about earlier, where the crime scene was expanded behind a house into that kind of parking tree area. You could easily just sit there probably for hours and watch parties and who's coming in and out, and maybe even write down the times or anything. And so it says here, I would see people in the windows almost every night, probably 4 or 5 nights a week. So this was just, it's college, it's a common occurrence, but also got to think about who were the people that were coming in and out of that place. Like from the one person that says it was kind of like a controlled gathering. Sometimes the music got loud, but then it seems like there were gatherings happening all the time. Who are these? The friends got to know. I'm sure they're talking to police. Maybe they should interview all these people that they know that have come and frequented this house. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you check out the press conference live stream link down below in the comment section in the description. We're going to start an hour early tomorrow and have a multitude of discussions involving this case while we wait for the press conference. Take care. Peace. Bloop, bloop.